Hello, greetings, and welcome everyone to the final regular week of the ASL review. I am SirMoth, and I'm actually back this time, I am pretty sure. And I'm joined by Brad, as always. He's the real consistent one here.
It's true.
So this was a fairly interesting week as the final week. We have gone ahead and order it in order of importance for these games because some games had very major playoff implications. Some of them had no playoff implications whatsoever, and so they were played accordingly. So we're kind of sorting them out in that order. But we will go ahead and start with week or match one. Take it away.
Match one was a metronome battle. It wasn't a battle that was taken seriously, so we're gonna move on to match two.
Exactly. So, match number two here, we had Malone versus Shadow, and this was a pretty fun match. Both players were bringing some more, I guess, meme stuff. It was really fun to see stuff like offensive Tangela, belly drum substitute LilA that didn't have the right hit point investment to proc its Salakberry.
Yep.
Curse
Wheezing.
Gyro Ball Wheezing. Another fun set, but the major set for this week was Malone's Hypnosis Skill Swap Mega Gallade that took advantage of Beast Boost from Kartana and managed to sweep. Mega Gallade is already one of the scariest things. Add pretty much Moxie onto it, and
Mm-hmm.
you've got yourself a beast.
Yeah, I mean, not to mention autonomized struggle bug fortress. Like it was an all out there week. That everything that could have been fun came. We saw a melodic that wasn't flame orb. I didn't even know those still existed. Like it was in terms of strange things happening, it was a good matchup. But that being said, it's not like this wasn't fairly competitive. I mean, it was pretty back and forth um, with some very unconventional moves and unconventional sets. Like he had the licky with a sub, but then just swapped out like max belly drummed subbed up licky because he wasn't doing anything to Cartana. Like it was a strange week.
Yeah, because the Kartana was actually Iron Defense, and it was setting up in front of the belly drum licky.
Yep.
Yeah, just very, very fun. I definitely enjoy watching these kinds of matches, even if the playoff implications weren't there, even if neither player was necessarily playing 100% to win.
Hmm.
It's still really fun to see all these cool interactions happen.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I mean, two guys that went 4-9 at the end of the season. 4-9 is not what you're aiming for, but it means that you were competent. And you
Yeah.
take 4 games in this league, you've done something. I mean, I think there was only one coach that only got one win. So I mean, if you're pulling out in 4 wins, you're beating some guys. You're playing some stiff competition. So I mean, that's not what you're shooting for, but it's not nothing either. So that there are some good things to take away from that number.
Yeah, exactly.
But match three was Sorel versus Brett. A similar game in that not a whole lot to be won or lost in this particular match, but a nice performance by Brett. Pulled away a 5-0, managed to bring his win total also to 4 games. And solid, I think I mentioned this last week, but with this win, if I'm not correct, I apologize, Brett, but I think 4 wins ties his historical high. And that's with 2 to 3 seasons having taken off away from Mons. So he's coming back for his first season in a new generation after having a couple of seasons off, and he pulls out his all-time high, or at least tied for his best season. That seems to me that maybe there's some promise. You know what I mean? Maybe he's sharpened his skill set. Maybe he's just playing safer or paying more attention. I don't know what the answer is, but the fact that he took a couple seasons off, came back to a new generation, and is tying his previous best says good things in my book.
Yeah, I definitely look forward to seeing what he has to bring to the table next season if he continues on, which, well, I don't know if he is or not, but I believe that he probably is. And if that's the case, I look forward to seeing what he drafts and how he plays given this 13 weeks of time to improve.
Yeah, and I don't recall what. Do you remember how many wins Nemo had when he left? I want to say it was 3-1.
I think so. I think so.
So, maybe not the best showing for Sorel, but it wasn't her team. She didn't necessarily draft it, although she did actually draft it. But I think she was drafting it according to his plan for the most part. Not maybe the way that she wanted to show herself in her first ASL appearance with what I believe is 2 wins on her own. With that being said, she competed against some tough people. She won 2 games. So, yeah, she earned some respect in my book. You got to win in this league, you did something. So, in my book, she earned some respect.
Yeah, and I know from playing with her in different leagues that she's definitely a good player. I think that maybe, I mean, if I'm going off of my own experiences, when I take over a team that's not my own, it's harder to give 100% my all. And so I completely understand that if that's the case. I also know that she's been busy. I understand that if that's the case. But regardless, I think that she did bring some really cool stuff to the table and did some really good playing, especially in those first couple of weeks. I believe she won her 2 games that she won. I believe she won pretty early on in her playing. So
Now, before you change to the next slide, let's give a quick picture here of what you're looking for in matches 4 through 7, okay? There's only one spot on the line in terms of playoff potential, and that's the 6th spot. And the competition there is between EleKid and Dragos. One of them is making it, one of them is going home. IL does not control his own destiny, but has to win to have the chance to be in. Now, the 2nd seed is also on the line. Nothing else of significance is on the line. The 6th seed and the 2nd seed. The 2nd seed has a lot of different factors that we'll talk about throughout the battles. But long and short of the 2nd seed is, I think there are 4 teams that have a shot at it. Is that right?
yes, there are 4 teams.
Yeah, at least 3, possibly 4 teams that have a shot at the 2nd seed. And that 6th seed is still in contention between Dragos and EleKid. So, onward we can go now.
All right, so match number 4, and this is the match where EleKid needed to win this in order to have a shot at that 6th seed. And as you can see on the slide here, that is exactly what happened. It wasn't by a huge margin, but I believe that I think it's just the win. I don't think the differential mattered as far as making it or not. So the win came from EleKid, which means that the next part is on to how Dragos does.
Yeah.
But in this match, Peaches came out with some very interesting stuff. Turn 1, Giga Impact Stoutland. And later on, I believe even a Giga Impact Lipard and Hurricane Sandaconda. All kinds of really interesting stuff coming in.
Zap Cannon Slow King.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so very interesting stuff coming from Peaches. And EleKid managed to, and all of this stuff, it was kind of weird, but none of it was like super ineffective, I guess. A lot of the
Yeah.
stuff that was happening wasn't like, okay, he's obviously just memeing here. So
Yeah.
EleKid actually fought back really hard. Miltank took a really important hit from the Mega Diancie, I believe. And Tornadus Incarnate ended up being the one to really just solidify things in the end there.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, one of two things happened. Either Peach misplayed by swapping into Stoutland on the Hurricane, or he just intentionally threw. My assumption is that he was swapping the Stoutland in on Tornadus in hopes that the Hurricane would miss in the sand. Then he could swap back into the Sandaconda to reset sand, then go back into Stoutland. That's how I think he was hoping this would turn out. But also, there's the potential that he just didn't want to ruin EleKid's chances since he had already missed playoffs. I don't know, and I didn't ask him. But either way, EleKid did enough to stay in contention. He got the win. Which at this point, based on differential, did not have an opportunity to make it into playoffs. Strange to see a guy like Peach going 6-7. You're looking at, the season 9 runner-up. You're talking about a guy who's put out, double-digit win seasons before. It's a tough season when a guy like that is losing more than he won.
Yeah, for sure. Because Peaches was playing really, I think he was pretty much dominating, top 3 places for at least the first 5 or so weeks. So some really good play and just some really tough competition. Ended up barely, 6-7 at -1, 6-6 dead even last week. So still doing very well and hanging on, but definitely a very competitive season.
Yeah, and 7-3 plus 13 for IL. That gives him a shot, right? We talked about that in last week's video. 7 wins is the least amount of wins to ever make playoffs. That was, so he gave himself a shot.
Yep.
Match 5 was you and LilA. As you can see, it was a 3-0 victory toward LilA, but this was a tight. This was a pretty tight battle back and forth, honestly. Focusing on what's obvious from the graphic here is a 5-0 Venomoth. But there were some shenanigans, I think, that got us to that point. Sleep powder's 25% chance to miss, if I've got that right. It didn't. It didn't. And I believe you slept, was it 1 or 2 turns? Do you recall?
I stayed in. I slept for 2 turns before switching out.
So you slept for 2 turns, didn't get the wake up. So, a little bit of bad luck maybe there, but not the end of the world. If you had won, you would have been guaranteed the first round bye. By not winning, you were essentially guaranteed to not get the first round bye. So there was a bit on the line there. Now, both of y'all were guaranteed locked into playoffs, I believe, at this point. So nothing really to worry about there as far as I can recall. You were both at 8 wins at that point. It was a good match. He did have a really nice Toxic Altaria that caused what could have been a nice Slowbro sweep to certainly not occur. Your Dragos being fast was nice. Outsped the Executor. Some good things. It was a good battle. Nice back and forth. A little bit of sleep powder shenanigans ultimately caused you to pay the piper. But a nice battle, particularly as you warm up. Week 13, we're walking in out of really one season. Honestly, in my mindset, we finished season 11 and we're heading into postseason 11 at this point. So I think a nice way to wrap up both of y'all seasons in a tightly contested battle. And 8-5 and 9-4. that's pretty much guaranteed playoffs year in, year out. You'll take that.
Yeah, so this was well. I'll start off by saying that technically, the Venomoth sweep is something that I could have 100% prevented, and that was my own mess up because I was in with the Victini against the Venomoth, and I completely forgot about Sleep Powder for some reason. I thought that the options were either Venomoth kills Victini because it was -2 on defenses and speed, or it tries to get frisky and quiver dance in my face, and I completely forgot that Sleep Powder is what it went for. If I had remembered, I would have gone into the Landorus Therian. It was already toxic. It would have been immune to Sleep Powder. It would have taken out the Venomoth. Easy stuff. I think I had a good chance of winning from there because Victini was kind of just cleaning house. But I didn't do that. Victini got put to sleep, slept 2 turns, switched out, came back, slept another turn. That is what it is, and I won't blame the hacks. But regardless of that, as far as playoff contentions, this was a very interesting match because I was guaranteed that second seed if I won.
Yeah.
If I lost, then LilA had a shot at that second seed, but because of the differential, if either you or Ian ended up winning your matches, then whoever won those would instead take the second seed. So as of this match, LilA had the shot at getting the second week depending on how the next 2 matches go.
Indeed. And I think you got weeks or match 6.
Yeah, so speaking of those next 2 matches, this next one was yours versus Dragos, and this is important for 2 reasons. One, because if you win, I believe you are guaranteed that second seed even over Ian.
Based on differential, I was guaranteed the second seed if I won.
Yeah, and so, but if you lost, then Dragos ended up getting that 6th seed over EleKid, and that is exactly what happened. This was actually a very, very fun match to watch. A lot of it hinged around Zygarde from Dragos and Mega Charizard from you. Because the Zygarde, it was soaking up a lot of hits. It was just the traditional sub coil, and then it had Thousand Arrows Dragon Tail. So it was subbing up, coiling up. You had the Silvally to Ice Beam it, but if it had a sub up, it could Dragon Tail. It was chipping down the Silvally. Your Mega Charizard wasn't 2-hit KO'd, but it didn't want to take many hits. But also, not much of Dragos' team wanted to take hits from Charizard. In fact, barely anything because you had Workup. So, if Dragos was too passive with Wishes or anything like that, then you could potentially set up and demolish things. So it was a very, very tight battle. A lot of it had to do with how well Dragos could preserve that Zygarde and get it in at the right time, and I believe that he did it very, very well. What it ultimately came down to, Gengar was against a Seismitoad rather early on. Energy Ball, Seismitoad was not Rindoberry. And so that opened up the gates. Once things got chipped down by the Zygarde, Gengar was able to just get a free 5 more Pokemon down. Just a clean sweep.
I mean, that's ultimately what it came down to. And, that was a decision I made. I was in prep with a prep partner of mine. I had Rindoberry all week long up until 3 minutes before the battle started, and I allowed myself to be talked into leftovers. I knew it wasn't what I needed to, but I just didn't have the time to really focus on prep this week, and I made a suboptimal choice, and I lost the game in the prep stage. And I think that's an important lesson to consider as we're walking out of Season 11 and into Postseason 11, is you can't shortchange your prep stage, man. If you shortchange your prep stage at this point in Postseason 11, you will lose your match. Guaranteed, lock it in. Uncle Brad's telling you right now, like that's gonna happen to you if you shortchange your prep. And this was a playoff level match. Dragos had to win. And if I had Rendo Berry, odds are that I'm gonna at least 5-0 him and he's gonna miss the playoffs. So I'm really happy for him that he did get the win. I'm really happy he made playoffs. He had a season worthy of playoffs. He drafted a nice team. He's used it fairly well throughout the season. I would have been bummed out if he would have missed playoffs as well as he'd played throughout the season.
Yeah, definitely. And I've said it before, Dravos's team is probably my favorite team to watch and just in concept. The Double Wish has been performing amazingly with Sylveon and Aloma Mola, with the Mega Aggron to just be a spine to keep it going, and then some really speedy offense. It's just a really, really good team, a really fun one to watch. And then the Illumise has actually been putting in a lot of work since that pickup. So
it's been nice. It's been nice, and he's used it well. I think, if we were to rematch, certainly he would do things differently, and I would do things differently. But I think I showed that Charizard Y in his match and with the style of play that he has, Charizard Y was tearing him to shreds. As evidenced by the fact that only 2 Mons got kills in this match, Charizard Y and Gengar.
yeah.
So it was just kind of like which one of those two had the momentum at the moment. What a fun match, though. I really enjoyed that.
So I believe
but at the end of match 6, LilA is still in second place. Going into match 7, you can see that Ian did win his match. Static, I believe, was eliminated prior to that based on differential. But Ian will claim the second seed based on his win this week versus Static. So that's our playoff field, right? You got Ian in the bye, TCP in the bye, and we'll talk about the week 1 matches from postseason 11. But Ian and Static was a good match. There were some surprising things maybe in this match. We did finally see the Meloetta swapping to the pirouette form. It did some things. Aegislash was really crafty in this match, although failed to get a key kill on a Titanol. Titanol's probably front runner for Tier E Mon of the Year. I don't know. There's no voting or anything at this point. I'm just saying, is there a Mon you can think of off the top of your head that's been better from the Tier E position than Titanol?
I really can't. I mean, I think he's brought it to at least, like, maybe he's dropped it from 1 or 2 matches, but I think he's brought it to almost every single match, and it's performed really well in all of them.
I mean, yeah, if you just blindly, name 3 Mons off of Ian's roster, you would probably get Titanol in that 3. You would probably remember Titanol, which is not, I would say, common for Titanols.
Yeah.
Right? Probably not. Yeah, I mean, his Titanol, I'm looking back into the stat chart, but his Titanol is tied for second most appearances on his team at 11. We have a 13-week regular season.
Yep.
Yeah. What a fascinating way to use a Mon kind of unconventionally. But it was a good battle, a little bit of back and forth. Static wasn't making bad plays, but also seemed to perpetually fail to get the momentum that he needs. I think that's probably a fair way to say it. I was completely stunned that his Sand Slash only took 60% from a liquidation from Mega Sharpedo. That was just bonkers to me.
That was really surprising.
Yeah, I was just completely astounded by that. But otherwise, it was a close match, and Static had a really good chance to compete there at the end. But D-Dance Necrozma was able to speed up and put itself in a position to win even with webs up, which is, I think, what was kind of surprising. He still got the D-Dance sweep, even though it had a D-Dance through the webs.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is. I may be wrong, but I think this is the first time that he's brought Dragon Dance Necrozma.
It's the first time he's using Necrozma right all season long.
Yeah, I think he's brought like Charge Beam twice and then a whole bunch of defensive sets. But who would have guessed? You bring Dragon Dance Necrozma and you actually get 4 kills with it. Turns
I
out that's how
mean,
this Pokemon works.
I think it's fitting that at the end of the season, quite frankly, he's disrespected Necrozma all season long by failing to use it effectively. And what's the one mon that locks him in for the bye? Necrozma. Stop disrespecting the mon. If you want a chance to win in playoffs, give the mon the love it deserves. Good grief, man.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see if his strategy with Necrozma ends up changing for these playoff matches.
I mean, you think you would have to, right? You want to adapt, and I mean, I think it's clear he found something there that he hadn't been utilizing throughout the season. Not that defensive Necrozma is not good, right? Defensive Necrozma can be very, very good. There's Stealth Rock Necrozma was fabulous before it got D-Dance, but you know, I think a wise person learns from what they've seen on the field, and Necrozma is a lot more than recover health or up a calm mind. It's more than that.
Yeah. Yeah, so as far as this match goes, I definitely think it was very fun. Ooh, that was an
Sorry,
interesting sound.
apologize. Laptops.
But with this, it makes the actual playoffs. Well, of course, now that we've done all of our final matches, we have the final playoffs matchups for next week. And
Yep.
there's also what's the word for it? You know what I'm talking about. Another bracket.
Oh, consolation bracket.
Yes, there is a consolation bracket as well, but we are just going to wait until next week and we will be covering those matches. But for right now, we didn't have a featured match. We are going to look over the 2 playoff matches that are going to be happening next week.
Yeah. Yeah. So the first match we're covering is the 4 and 5 seed. This is on the TCP side of the bracket. So the winner ultimately will go on to defeat TCP to make it to the finals. Hopefully, anyway. Fingers crossed. You've got Dragos versus Moth. The records here are a little off their true records at this point. They're 0-0. And it's going to be a fascinating match. Early preview, not to get into it too much. I think it's close. I think there's a couple of things on each side that have a chance to shine. It's going to be a really fascinating match. I don't recall who won y'all's first match.
I ended up winning it last time.
Yeah. So conventional wisdom would say that the rematch potentially favors Dragos, right? Losing team, you would say probably had the chance to learn more than the winning team. So Moth will have the opportunity to try to overcome that. But it looks like a close match. Not to ask you to give too many thoughts on your own matchup, but just in general, how you looking forward to playing Dragos round 1?
Yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to this. Is one of the rematches I really wanted to have because if you recall, this is the match where we decided our leads up front. And so
Yeah.
it was locked into Sylveon versus Cobalion. And I think both of those Pokemon have real chances to shine in ways that they couldn't as a lead necessarily. And especially, I mean, Dragos having a fairy versus a steel type, it's not going to be a favorable matchup. So this will even the playing field, I think, a lot. I think I went into that game with quite the advantage. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how things will change up for this next one. I haven't
Well,
prepped yet, but I know it's going to be a really fun prep session.
you thought you had an advantage until you calm mine twice and then miss focus miss.
Yeah, I got paralyzed, I believe, 3 times and missed Focus Blast once. So Yeah, that one
Yeah,
wasn't.
that was one of those on paper advantages.
Yeah, but we'll definitely see how it goes this next time.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's very much worthy of a postseason 11 round one match. Should be a good one.
So the
And
other match that's coming up is going to be you versus LilA, and this is also going to be a very interesting match because, well, one thing I will say is LilA has a Mew that is guaranteed to be very likely to have multiple sets that it can run. And whenever you're having a rematch like this, having really versatile Pokemon is going to be really important. I don't remember, was this one of the opponents you faced before you made your changes?
no, this was after. This was after. This was toward the second half of the season when we played.
Okay, and I'm not quite recalling, but how did that match end up going?
I don't really. I remember that I beat him. I think this was the match where Weezing got a crit on Venomoth.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this was the
Um,
failed Venomoth sweep.
but I don't recall the details of that match. What I do know is that I really wanted to. I don't want to say this. Decided to battle LilA. I was hoping to save this match until later on. I was hoping that potentially he and I would be on opposite sides of the brackets because I really like his team and I really like his play style this season, and I think he's got a real shot. And he very well may beat me in the first round of the playoffs. But I was hoping to save this one and not maybe potentially match up with him later on in a more impactful game, maybe even the finals. So I hate to face him round one because that means one of us is going to get eliminated. But I like his team. I like what he's doing, and I think he's got a real shot. I really do.
Yeah, and that's kind of the nature of playoffs, especially in this league. We're going to have a whole lot of very good coaches playing, and the very good coaches are very often fun to watch and have enjoyable prep. So I'm honestly looking forward to all of these games. I've looked forward in the bracket depending on who wins what, all of the future matches that could happen. I believe this is the Ian side, so if
Yeah,
you end up winning, then you get your run back with Ian, and
yeah,
LilA versus Ian would be a fun one too. I think every single match that we have possibly coming up is going to be a really exciting one.
yeah. And I do say this seriously. I do mean this, but I would really love to see TCP and I both lose. I love seeing new, never before crowned champions. If I had it my way, that's what would happen every single season. So TCP and I are the only people in the playoffs that have won one in the past. If I knew that TCP was already eliminated, I would probably prep half as hard. But I need to stay in until I know that he loses. And, and then at that point, I'll be comfortable if I end up taking an L. I'm okay with that. But I need to see him lose first.
Okay, so it looks like the strategy is I have to make it to TCP and win because at that point, then it's me versus you and you give up. Forfeit win
Hey,
for the victory.
I may get dunked on by LA. The kid's got an incredible team.
Yeah, that's
Um,
very true.
and he's been playing it well. I am going to play it hard. I want to beat him. I gotta hold out until I make sure TCP loses because I can't have that kid winning again.
Yeah, I don't think any of these victories are at all confirmed. I may do a little bit of trash talking here or there in the chat at some points. If that happens, that is not at all because I think that I have a guaranteed locked in win.
Yeah,
It's it's definitely going to be tough every single week from here on out.
definitely. But I mean, I've had a fun season. Like I said, to me, season 11 is over. I had a lot of fun in season 11. I had some unique experiences. I went 0-3, first time in my life, and I was able to still get to postseason 11. So I'm feeling good. I had a great season, and I'm looking forward to this next one.
Yeah, definitely. As a debut season, I couldn't ask for much more. A lot of tight contention for the playoffs, actually making it to playoffs. If I win, I would be ecstatic, but if I don't, then I've enjoyed being an observer and being able to actually make content, and this is all new for me, so it's all good.
If you win, you would be ecstatic. If you lose, you would be more like static.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Oh.
hope he watches this to that moment. I hope he does.
All right, that was
So
a good
very
one.
quickly, let me just recap for you. The unthinkable happened. Klefki was the kill leader for the season.
Yep. And
22 kills.
and kill leading, all of that stat tracking is done now that we're at playoffs, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
22 kills. Captured this season's kill leader. Doesn't necessarily mean that it will win MVP. I think Embor at 5 less appearances, but only 21 kills. I think it's got something to say, but 22 kills, 3 deaths over 12 matches.
Yeah, that's going down in history.
It's a good one, man. You've got, I mean, as is the Embor use 21 kills, 3 deaths, 7 games. Both
Yeah.
of those, they got something to say. That is pretty wild. That's pretty wild. What would you say? And I know I'm getting off on tangent here, but what can you do? What would you say is the mon that surprised you the most in terms of positive or negative production from your team?
From my team.
Mhm.
Um well, I'll go with one of each. I'm going to go ahead and say Mega Slowbro didn't do nearly as much as I wanted it to. It got that early 6-0, and
Yeah,
then people kind of just learned that you throw Toxic on it and it doesn't do much. Maybe I've
hmm,
been using it incorrectly. I don't
sure,
necessarily think so. I think it's just that's something people look at in prep. It's really easy to just throw Toxic on literally anything that's before the 8th generation
sure.
and just completely counter it in a lot of cases. But as far as good performance, I have been really happy about my. Well, Dancy has done well, but I've been really happy about my Dragalge. I picked that up a little later on, just kind of like I want something to absorb toxic spikes. But once
Hmm.
actually prepping with that thing, it is a beast with
Yeah.
some of the damage output. If my opponent doesn't have an amazing steel type to counter it, oftentimes I can just chunk Pokemon after Pokemon with it.
Hard to kill too. That's the thing I've always liked about Deancey. Base Deancey has always been something I considered in my drafts because it's very, very difficult to one shot. It allows it to be a great revenger in my book.
Yeah.
I would say, from my team, it's kind of funny. It took me a long time to gain traction with Charizard Y. I had some bad luck, had some hacks with it. It took me a long time to gain traction with that mon. But I did eventually. Eventually was able to gain some traction with it, and it went 4-1 in week 13, and then it went 5-0 in week 12. I got 9 kills from Charizard in 2 weeks. That's pretty fun. I'm
Yeah.
pretty happy with that.
Yeah, that's definitely a really powerful mega. It may have its weaknesses for sure, but if you can just get in a matchup where you can click the fire moves without worrying, it can be a beast.
Yeah, definitely. And the only other thing I would just say is I made Wigglytuff useful. That's a mon that I think we'll start seeing more regularly.
Yeah, I think that as far as just a hyper budget Clefairy, Wigglytuff does its job. It wish passes, It's got decent enough defense. If you aren't looking for something with offensive presence, you're just looking for something to pass around wishes and be a good cleric, then E tier Wigglytuff can do it.
You can do a lot worse than Wish Teleport.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah. Tangent over. Just side notes. You're all welcome.
Yeah,
that was for free.
We've got to increase that video time because goodness forbid we ever do a less than 50-minute recap.
I mean, it's true. It's true. It's true.
Oh, but regardless, I believe, unless you have any other tangents up your sleeve, I'm fine to go on a second one.
No, nothing else really to say. Postseason 11 starts this week. You should be able to. I don't want to say for sure, but I'm optimistic you'll get some season 12 spoilers by this weekend. Potentially a tier list, potentially the entire doc. Maybe middle of postseason week 2. But I'm thinking this weekend you may get some spoilers.
I'm looking forward to that one for sure.
Yeah.
But regardless, that is all we have for this week. I hope you all enjoyed the recap. Go ahead and, if you feel like it, like and subscribe if you want to be notified. If you want to watch the videos, you're probably watching them from Discord anyway. But regardless, that has been Brad and I signing off.
Deuces.